This month's Japanese history focuses on the Meiji Restoration, as we did last time. The Meiji Restoration was a movement to defeat the Tokugawa shogunate and modernize Japan that took place at the end of the Edo period. Previously, I explained that the alliance between Satsuma and Choshu included Satsuma's efforts to bring Choshu back to the political scene in Kyoto. At this stage, the movement had not yet developed into a movement to defeat the shogunate. Let's take a look at the movements of the shogunate during the period when the Sacho alliance was formed. After the Sacho alliance was formed, a second attempt by the shogunate to defeat Choshu was planned. However, the Satsuma clan, which had a large military force, would not send troops to the shogunate because it had made an alliance with Choshu and promised to remain neutral. The battle-weary shogunate forces continued to lose ground to the desperate Choshu forces. On July 20, 1866, Shogun Ishiji, who was overseeing the shogunate forces at Osaka Castle, died of illness. Yosinobu Hitotsubashi was determined to go into battle and defeat Choshu himself. However, when he heard the news that Kokura Castle had fallen, he cancelled his campaign and asked the imperial court to arrange a truce with Choshu. The next shogun was none other than Yosinobu Hitotsubashi, who was proposed to be the next shogun by the upper echelons of the shogunate, but Yoshinobu refused the proposal. It is said that this was done in order to make it easier for him to conduct politics, as if he had become a general at the behest of everyone. After becoming shogun, Yoshinobu implemented a number of reforms. The weakness of the shogunate's army, which was revealed in the recent battle with Choshu, was partly due to old-fashioned equipment, so he brought in a $2.5 million loan from friends and military advisors to transform the army into a French-style force. Yoshinobu's administration emphasized governmental management that incorporated the imperial court, and Yoshinobu himself spent most of his time in Kyoto after becoming shogun. He wanted to use the power of the imperial court as a backdrop to take control of politics. In December 1866, Emperor Komeei died suddenly. Emperor Komeei was a great xenophobe and was the biggest barrier to Japan's opening diplomatic relations with foreign countries. For this reason, there was a rumor at that time that Emperor Komeei might have been poisoned. The year 1868 was the year of the promise to open the port of Kobe as stipulated in the Japan-US Treaty of Amity and Commerce, and Yoshinobu was in a position to keep this promise at all costs. In March 1867, Yoshinobu explained to the overseas minister that he would definitely carry out the opening of the port of Kobe under the responsibility of the shogun. This had not yet been approved by the imperial court and was at the sole discretion of Yoshinobu. Saigo, Okubo, and others in the Satsuma clan wanted to shift to a political system that combined the clans and the shogunate, with the imperial court at the center. Yoshinobu's decision was partly to restrain them and partly to show the world that the shogunate held political power. Saigo and Okubo of the Satsuma clan summoned Hisamitsu Shimazu of the Satsuma clan, Munenari Date of the Uwajima clan, Yodo Yamauchi of the Tosa clan, and Sengaku Matsudaira of the Echizen clan to Kyoto and planned to hold a meeting to discuss the problems of Choshu and the port of Kobe. It was a stance that did not allow Yoshinobu to abuse his power. This meeting was called the Four Parties Meeting. This meeting of the four claimants was again marred by a clash of opinions between Yoshinobu and Hisamitsu Shimazu. Hisamitsu's opinion was that the Choshu issue should be dealt with first, while Yoshinobu's opinion was that the issue of the opening of the port of Kobe, for which the deadline was approaching, was the most important. As the head of the government, Yoshinobu took desperate action to settle the issue of the opening of the port of Kobe, which he had promised to exercise in foreign countries. The imperial court stubbornly refused to open the port of Kobe as the will of the deceased emperor. Yoshinobu himself went to the imperial court and forcefully pressed for permission to open the port of Kobe. Yoshinobu said, "If the opening of the port of Kobe is not approved, I will take responsibility for it and commit seppuku here from now on. Negotiations with foreign countries should be done by yourselves." The imperial court was very upset and gave Yoshinobu the royal warrant to open the port of Kobe. This action by Yoshinobu crushed the possibility of a coalition government between the shogunate and the domains, centered on the imperial court, as planned by Saigo and Okubo. In the eyes of Saigo and Okubo, Yoshinobu seemed to think that only the shogunate should be in power. At this point, Saigo made a clear shift from joint politics with the shogunate to the idea of overthrowing the shogunate. Thus, the Satsuma and Choshu clans began to prepare for the overthrow of the shogunate. Takamori Saigo of the Satsuma clan approached the Tosa clan's militant Taisuke Inui, later Taisuke Itagaki, and made a secret agreement that if the Satsuma clan launched a war against the shogunate, the Tosa clan would respond. Inui immediately returned to Tosa and strongly persuaded Yodo Yamauchi, the lord of the domain, to join Tosa in the movement to overthrow the shogunate. Yodo was persuaded by the enthusiasm of his favorite retainer, Inui, and agreed to this persuasion. However, the Yamauchi family of Tosa felt indebted to the Tokugawa and were at a loss to join the movement to defeat the Tokugawa. Ryoma Sakamoto presented his Tosa vassal, Zojiro Goto, with a proposal for the return of power by the shogunate to the imperial court. Goto was convinced that this was the course that Tosa, who owed a debt of gratitude to the Tokugawa, would take, and he proposed this plan to Yodo Yamauchi. Yodo Yamauchi was so impressed with this plan that he made it the policy of the Tosa clan. He also made it clear that if the shogunate rejected this plan, he would join the movement to overthrow the shogunate. Saigo of the Satsuma clan, who was inclined to overthrow the shogunate, was at first puzzled by this proposal, but he agreed to it because there was no way that Yoshinobu would go along with it. In October 1867, Yodo Yamauchi submitted to Shogun Yoshinobu a written proposal for the transition of power. What an acceptance of this proposal by Yoshinobu! Yoshinobu was aware that Satsuma and Choshu had joined forces to promote the campaign against the shogunate. If he handed over power to the imperial court, Saigo and the others would have no excuse to take military action. It is also said that the imperial court was not capable of managing the government and expected that Keiki would be in charge of politics for a while. Yoshinobu had intended to continue as shogun, but Tatewaki Komatsu of the Satsuma clan persuaded him to resign his position. As Yoshinobu had predicted, the imperial court was greatly embarrassed by the request for the return of power, and the shogunate was left to administer the government for a while. However, Tomomi Iwakura, the Satsuma clan, and the Choshu clan were making preparations for a campaign against the shogunate. First, they plotted a coup d'etat within the imperial court. The previous emperor was gone, and Emperor Meiji was only 15 years old. And the aristocrats who held power in the imperial court were almost all people who were beholden to Yoshinobu. It was necessary to remove this person who was not capable of administering the government from the imperial court and to remove Yoshinobu from power. In this article, I have explained the process up to the point where the Great Political Reformation was accepted. In the next article, I will explain the Boshin War. If you enjoy it, please subscribe to my channel and like my page.